What were houses like in the time of Jesus more than 2,000 years ago? For centuries, we have imagined Jesus entering houses that looked like simple versions of our own. But what if that image is wrong? What materials were those houses really built with? How did entire families organize life without bedrooms, without closets, and with almost no furniture? What utensils did they use to cook, eat, and survive day after day? And how could a small difference in the quality of construction mean comfort for some and a risk of death for others on the cold nights of Galilee? When you truly step inside these houses, you discover that domestic life in the time of Jesus worked in such a different and intelligent way that even the simplest details of the Gospels begin to carry a completely new meaning. Stay until the end, because what you will discover goes beyond historical curiosity. It is a strengthening of our faith today. The first impact when entering a house from the time of Jesus did not come from the walls or the roof, but from the floor. There was no wood, marble, or polished stone. The floor was made of packed earth, mixed with lime and straw, carefully compacted until it became hard, smooth, and surprisingly durable. To the touch, it was cold at dawn and retained heat throughout the day. This floor was not a sign of misery, it was a practical solution. It lasted for decades without cracking and required minimal maintenance. Even so, to the modern eye, it would seem unworthy, something we would today call extreme poverty. But this floor hid a decisive detail. It was not level. Right after the door, the house descended a few centimeters. There lay the space for the family's animals. A goat, perhaps a few sheep. At night, while the outside world sank into silence, the low sound of the animals' breathing and chewing filled the house. This living warmth slowly rose, heating the area where the family slept. It was not improvisation, it was survival. In harsh winters, this difference could mean waking up healthy, or not waking up at all. Above this lower level was the family's space. Everything happened there, on the same floor. Eating, sleeping, working, teaching the children. It was on this simple floor that Jesus crawled, fell, got up, and took his first steps. It was there that he watched Joseph working while seated, legs crossed, tools scattered around him. It was there that Mary prepared food, kneading bread, lighting the fire, organizing life with precise gestures repeated day after day. This floor shaped the rhythm of the house. It demanded constant attention, discipline, and cooperation. Any object out of place could injure a bare foot. Any disorder compromised everyone's space. Perhaps that is why, when Jesus later spoke about foundations, about houses that stood firm or were destroyed, no one found it strange. They knew, from their own experience, that everything began with the floor. And even without rooms or furniture, there was, in that simplicity, a surprising order. An order that governed the entire house. Houses in the time of Jesus had no bedrooms, corridors, or fixed internal divisions. It was a single continuous space, with no walls separating functions. To the modern eye, this suggests disorganization. But in practice, it functioned according to a strict, invisible, and deeply respected order. Each area of the floor had a defined use, not by architecture, but by habit, tradition, and family discipline. The higher space, away from the animals' area, was reserved for the family. During the day, work was done there, teaching took place, and visitors were received. At night, the same space became a collective sleeping area. This flexibility required constant care. Everything needed to be clean, organized, and ready to change function quickly. A disordered house was not just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. There was no privacy guaranteed by doors. Intimacy was built through respect, silence, and routine. Children learned early where they could step, what they could touch, and when to remain quiet. The house itself educated. It shaped character. It taught limits without words. The space did not belong to the individual, but to the family as a whole. Even without internal walls, there was hierarchy. Even without furniture, there was structure. Authority did not come from the space occupied, but from the responsibility assumed within it. It was in this environment that Jesus grew up, observing an order that did not depend on luxury, but on practical wisdom. This silent organization prepared the ground for everything that came afterward. Because for this simple life to work, something more solid and permanent was necessary. Walls capable of storing, protecting, and sustaining everything the family possessed. If the floor sustained life, the walls sustained everything the family possessed. They were neither thin nor decorative. The walls of houses in the time of Jesus were thick, made of irregular stone joined with mud and lime, reaching nearly half a meter in thickness. Beyond supporting the roof, they concealed an ingenious system of domestic organization, planned from the very first day of construction. During the building process, the builders left niches open in the walls themselves. Carefully calculated cavities at different heights, each with a specific function. In the higher niches, far from children's hands, were kept the most valuable items: small savings, important documents, sometimes scrolls of the scriptures carefully protected with cloths. Lower down, within reach of daily use, rested oil lamps, ceramic bowls, knives, and simple utensils. Near the floor, larger niches stored heavy tools, baskets, and extra jars. Nothing was random. Each object had a fixed place, known by everyone. These walls also regulated the life of the house in a silent way. During the day, they absorbed the intense heat of the sun. At night, they slowly released that heat, keeping the interior more stable. In summer, they did the opposite, protecting the family from extreme heat. Jesus grew up observing these walls that stored everything and protected everyone. It was in this environment that certain ideas gained weight. Safely keeping what was precious was not a metaphor. It was a daily necessity. Building carefully was not a religious discourse. It was a matter of survival. Vigilance did not begin in the heart. It began in the house itself. When Jesus later spoke about treasures, foundations, and constant attention, he was touching experiences that everyone knew in their bodies, not only in their minds. Those teachings were born from daily experience. There was wisdom in planning well, and there was negligence in building without thinking about the future. But above those solid walls, there was still a decisive space, often forgotten by the modern reader. A high place, silent and surprisingly alive. To understand it, one had to look up. To reach the roof, it was necessary to go outside the house. The stairs were on the exterior, leaning against the wall, narrow, steep, without a handrail. Steps worn by daily use, learned from childhood. Going up and down was part of the routine, almost as natural as crossing the doorway. Up there, the space opened up, flat, wide, exposed to the sky. The roof was not just a covering, it was an extension of the house. The construction was simple and ingenious. Thick wooden beams ran from one wall to the other. On top of them, interwoven branches formed a firm base. Above that, layers of straw and mud mixed with lime were compacted until they created a resistant, waterproof surface. This roof supported people walking, working, and gathering. And when cracks appeared, it was enough to remove the dried mud, redo the layer, and let it dry in the sun. Nothing was too permanent to be adjusted. During the day, The roof was a workspace. Clothes were spread out there, grains, dates, and figs were dried. Men repaired tools, women sewed, children played under the attentive eyes of adults. At night, especially in summer, entire families went up to sleep there. The heat of the day dissipated, the breeze flowed freely, and the starry sky became the ceiling. It was the quietest place in the house, the highest, the most private. There, everyday life touched the spiritual without ceremony. Work and prayer shared the same space. Ordinary life and revelation met on the same earthen surface. And perhaps this explains why, within those houses with almost no furniture, simplicity was not lack, but principle. Because everything that truly mattered had to fit into just a few objects. Inside those houses with almost no furniture, life revolved around just 4 objects. Nothing more, nothing less. The first were woven straw mats. Each family member had their own. In the morning, they were rolled up and leaned against the wall. During the day, they were unrolled as needed. They served as seats, as tables for meals, as workspaces. At night, they returned to the floor and became beds. A single object accompanied every stage of the day. The second element was the large ceramic jars. They were not scattered around the house, but partially buried in the ground. Each jar had a specific function: wheat, barley, lentils, oil, water, wine. The soil kept the temperature stable, protecting the food from excessive heat and insects. It was an efficient form of preservation without any modern technology. People walked over these jars without fear. They were part of the house's invisible structure. The third object was the oil lamp. Small, simple, but essential. At night, the house was never completely dark. The flame remained lit for safety, to prevent accidents, and to allow someone to get up without stumbling. The light was weak, but constant. In a space where everything happened on the floor, total darkness would have been far too dangerous. The fourth element was the brazier, a metal bowl in which the fire was lit. It had no fixed place. In winter, it stayed closer to the family. In summer, it was moved farther away. It served for cooking, warming, and gathering. Simply moving it could change the entire dynamic of the house. With only these 4 objects, an entire family could live, work, eat, and rest. Nothing was excessive. Nothing was missing. Growing up in such an environment taught, in practice, that the essential fits into little space. But this simplicity was not the same for everyone. Because even using the same objects, some houses were safe, and others always lived on the edge of loss. And that is where the difference between rich and poor began to reveal itself. Seen from the street, many houses looked the same size, the same stone walls, the same flat roof. But inside, small differences separated comfort from suffering, security from constant fear. Everything began with invisible details. The quality of the mortar, for example. Families with more resources used well-prepared lime mixed with fine sand. The result was waterproof walls that resisted the winter rains. Poor families resorted to simple mud mixed with straw. Over time, water seeped in, mold appeared, and the cold settled inside the house. The wood used in the roof also made a difference. Beams of cedar or oak lasted for generations. Reused or green wood began to give way after only a few years. Cracks, leaks, and fissures appeared. On rainy nights, sleeping meant listening to water dripping and hoping the roof would hold for one more season. It was not just discomfort. It was real risk. The ceramic jars revealed another abyss. Some were thick, well-fired, with fitted lids. They kept grain intact for long periods. Others cracked easily, let insects in, and compromised the family's entire reserve. The oil also varied. The purest produced clear light and little smoke. Low-quality oil darkened the environment, irritated the eyes, and impaired breathing. In poor houses, smoke was a constant companion. But the cruelest difference lay in the reserves. Some families managed to store food for 2 or 3 years. Others lived with provisions for only a few months. A drought, a plague, an unexpected tax, and everything disappeared. Gradually, they sold utensils, then tools, until almost nothing remained. Poverty did not arrive all at once. It seeped in, like dampness through poorly made walls. It was in this setting that certain stories told by Jesus gained concrete force. When he described the chasm between the rich man who feasted and the poor man who survived on crumbs in the Gospel of Luke 16, he was portraying inequalities that began inside the houses, in the quality of the walls, the reserves, and the light that illuminated the night. These images were not religious abstractions. They were social portraits. This contrast prepares the eye for something greater. Because if, inside these houses, life could be lost little by little, it was also there that the value of what is essential was learned. And it is from this floor, these walls, and these choices that the story moves toward its conclusion. To conclude, reflect. When we look inside the houses of the time of Jesus, we are not merely studying archaeology. We are entering the space where the Son of God lived ordinary life. Earthen floors, simple walls, few objects, and many people sharing the same space. Nothing there was superfluous. Everything had function, purpose, and limit. It is in this setting that the Christian faith gains historical weight. Jesus did not teach from palaces, but from houses, where every detail could mean security or loss, abundance or scarcity. Understanding this environment changes the way we read the Gospels because it reveals a Christ deeply incarnated in human reality. He knew daily labor, forced simplicity, and economic fragility. That is why his words cross the centuries with such authority. They are born from real life. By understanding how these families lived, we realize that what is essential has always fit into little space, and that true wealth was never in the walls, but in the heart. And if this documentary strengthened your faith and expanded your understanding of the Bible, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. Your support allows more people to discover the history that sustains the Christian faith and strengthen daily your conscious historical Christian walk. Until the next video.